We are here with at the last day at the Gamescom in Cologne 2009 with Craig Morrison, executive producer and game director of Age of Conan, to talk about the rise of
the Slayer. Yeah.
The new expansion of Age of Conan. You decided not to have a new class or not to raise the level cap in game with a new expansion. Why did you decide to do it like that? Why can I not be level 100?
Well, several reasons came into it. One, we wanted to, rather, in terms of the classes, we didn't just want to make one cool new class. We wanted to make a system that supports all the classes, getting a really added layer of depth to their character development. And that's what the alternate advancement system is about. It's about allowing the player to have this kind of the second level of advancement and then a third level with the training system that really allows them, the players have built these characters up over time, and they're dedicated to their characters and they love them, and we wanted them to allow them to take them into kind, get that Eastern experience and be able to expand that character further. And then in terms of levels, it is a power progression. The players who go through the alternate advancement system and gain these new abilities, they will be getting more powerful, and the content in the expansion will get progressively harder as they move through the playfields.
Let's talk about the mounts now. Yeah. So one of these mounts is a secret, and the other one is the tiger, which is impressive. How are you going to make them different from other games, Craig?
I think this in several ways. One, the new mounts in the expansion do different things. They have different abilities other than just moving the player around. And also in how they get them. These mounts aren't just sold at a vendor and a player goes and pays 100 gold and voila, we've got a tiger mount. No. The player has to do this very, very Conan-esque kind of quest. The guys have done a great job of bringing it to life, and it starts with the player barehanded, fighting a tiger with their bare hands to steal a cub from its den, and then doing a series of quests to kind of raise that cub and teach it to become the player's companion, teach it to fight by his or her side, and then eventually teach it to bear their weight and use it as a mount if they want to.
Will it be possible to visually actually see the cub grow?
It's not going to slowly get bigger and bigger, but there is phases that the pet will move through before it becomes, it doesn't start as
so I can't keep the cub, basically. That was my question.
You could, if you didn't do any of the other quests, if you chose to never do if you chose to not do the quests, you wouldn't turn it into that big mount that you see in the video.
Which is cool.
Yeah. So that's a choice. It's all about choices, and that's one of the key things of the expansion, is giving the player consequence to their decisions and giving them the choice. So a player could keep to stop those quests at any point and keep the pet at the stage that it's at.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, one of the things that we just saw in the presentation, which really made me smile and happy, is about the fact that Kitai is big.
Yeah.
It's huge. How did you achieve that? How important it was for you to make Kitai this big?
We wanted to make it a much more coherent experience for the player. So, if you were to draw it out on graph paper, the individual playfields are approximately the same overhead size as, say, the biggest playfield that we've got in the game now, which is Emir's Pass. But say, for example, Emir's Pass has, I think, about 1,200 NPCs in it. The expansion playfields have about 2,000, because we've been a little bit clever about the landscape. Whereas in a playfield like Emir's Pass or Canals Valley, there's lots of mountains, and that the players can't come up because they're steep, and there's inclines and large areas that the player can get. So in Kitai, we very much asked the designers to make there as much explorable game space as possible. So while on graph paper, the playfield's about the same size as Emir Pass, it actually has about 30 or 40% more playable game space. So we're able to get much more content in there and create this much more epic, fast, sweeping views off into the distance where the players can see these landmarks against the horizon.
One thing that I would like you also to explain to me is the new faction system.
Well, there isn't anything like this in the game at the moment. This is each of the two factions in each of the playfields. And when the player completes quests for one of the factions, they'll be gaining loyalty points with that faction. But by gaining loyalty points with one faction, you make an enemy of their enemy. And the difference is now that the NPCs remember. And, whereas in the original game, say, you could kill a guard and then 10 minutes later the guard doesn't remember, so he doesn't attack you. Now the faction will remember that you've committed these acts against them.
You give them memory, basically.
You give them memory, and the faction will remember, and then the faction will react to that. So if you've killed enough members of a faction, if you approach a city they control, they will attack you. So again, it's going back to the consequences that the player has to face when they make a choice to go through one or other of the factions.
You make basically the player think of what they're doing.
Exactly. And it's about telling a story. You know, each of these factions have very compelling stories, because Howard's world also isn't about black and white, good and evil. It's very morally ambiguous. There'll be lots of different consequences to the stories, and, you know, there's some really nice, unique storytelling elements in there that will allow the player to tell their own story as they go through Katai.
Would you agree that a community, a game community like yours, can be not only an asset to you as marketing goes, but also can help you in the development of your game?
Oh, for sure. I mean, community, like I said, I'm biased. I started out as working in community long before I worked with the production of games, and you know, community is very important to the games, especially in an online environment. You know, I can sit here all day and tell you how wonderful the game is, and we're great, and the designers are awesome, and we've made these cool, kick-ass stuff. And it doesn't matter one little bit if the players sat at their keyboards playing the game don't like it. And because they're the ones that are spreading the word of mouth about the game. They're the ones whose opinions really matter. So when it comes to interacting with the community and taking their feedback, you have to listen to them. Now, you also have to do it in a very, you know, in an open-minded way, because you have a lot of different opinions. There's so many different options that the MMOs kind of fall into that area where you're trying to please as many people as possible with different assets, assets of the game. So everyone can't be right all of the time. You know, you're always trying to please as many people as possible.
Or you can never please everyone.
You can never please everyone. There's always going to be someone who thinks, I mean, I can assure you, when I sit down with the designers and you get even 4 or 10 designers in a room, they won't all agree. You know, designers are players too, and they won't agree. And the process of design is coming to compromise and working through and figuring out who has the best parts. And sometimes it's like taking a bit from this person's idea, a bit from that person's idea, and combining them to make a coherent whole that works for more people. So the community is very, very important to a game, because they're the ones that enjoy it and talk about it. You know, nothing warms my heart better than seeing players talk on the forums about, you know, saying, oh, can I have some more buddy keys? I want to invite my friends. When we get to a point now, a year after the game is launched, and we'll talk about the expansion, where the players are confident enough asking their friends to come and join them in a game they enjoy, then we know that we're doing something right.
That was Craig Morrison, Age of Conan game director and executive producer. Thank you.